Well, hello there. Welcome back to the Pacific War channel, where we cover the entire history of the Asia-Pacific War of 1937 all the way up to 1945, and all the major events that led up to it. Now, today we're going to be finishing off a series looking into the Japanese invasion of North China and Inner Mongolia. If you've not already done so, please hit that like and subscribe button, as it helps this small but growing channel.
Let's up those numbers!
Stating all of that, let's just jump right into it. This is the Japanese invasion of Inner Mongolia, the Suiyuan Campaign. Field Marshal Baron Nobuyushi Muto created a false flag operation at Shanhaiguan. Then he unleashed Operation Nika, the invasion of Rehe province. After invading Rehe, Muto's forces attacked multiple entrances along the Great Wall of China, and they began an advance towards Beijing. Chiang Kai-shek was forced to negotiate a peace treaty, as he was not only dealing with the Japanese, but also the Chinese communists in the south. The Treaty of Tonggu that followed the invasion de facto resulted in the Kuomintang's recognition of Manchukuo, the loss of Rehe province, and over 22 counties in northern Hubei. After this, the Japanese defeated the anti-Japanese Allied army, gaining a foothold in Chahar province. Then Prince Denchong-donggrub, seeking autonomy for Inner Mongolia from the Chinese, formed a pact with the Japanese, seeing Chahar fall under their control. In order to obstruct the Nanjing government's control over northern China, Japan considered seizing Inner Mongolia. Beginning in the late 1920s, the Japanese dispatched agents to make contact with Prince Denchong-donggrub, who sought further autonomy from China. In September of 1933, Prince Denchong-donggrub gathered a council of Mongolian nobles and princes, and over the course of a few months they founded a pan-Mongolian self-rule movement. By mid-October, they drew up a confederation of Inner Mongolian states and sent a telegram to Nanjing stating that unless Chiang Kai-shek formally acknowledged Inner Mongolian autonomy, they would seek assistance from Japan. Chiang Kai-shek reluctantly permitted the establishment of a local Mongolian political affairs committee, but this would not be enough to satisfy the Mongolians. In December of 1934, General Jiro Minami and Vice Chief of Staff Colonel Seishiro Itagaki gave their support to the Inner Mongolian Political Affairs Committee. They began plans to expand upon it. Then in June of 1935, the North Chahar incident created a justification to dislodge Chinese military forces completely from Chahar province. The Japanese obtained an agreement with Prince Denchong-donggrub of full cooperation with Japan, thus Minami offered some military and financial assistance. On December the 24th of 1935, General Minami dispatched 2 battalions of Manchukuo cavalry, led by General Li Xiaoxin, a squadron of Japanese aircraft, and some tanks to assist Prince Denchong-donggrub as he occupied the northern parts of Chahar. The 6 counties of northern Chahar were only defended by a few peacekeeping corps troops. Prince Denchong-donggrub, with Li Xiaoxin's assistance, easily overwhelmed them, and they seized control of the area. In late April of 1936, Prince Denchong-donggrub and Li Xiaoxin met with the chief captain of the Japanese Special Services, Takeyoshi Tanaka, at West Wuchu-Mosin. The representatives of Qinghai, Inner and Outer Mongolia, took part in a meeting to discuss the possibility of creating a new Mongolian empire that would encompass their territories. This resulted in the establishment of the Bangjiang United Autonomous Government. Prince Denchong-donggrub proclaimed that they would recover the original land of the Mongols and complete the grand mission of national revival. At this point, the new state controlled northern Chahar. Thus, they would set to work planning an invasion of Suiyuan province. Japan brokered a mutual assistance agreement between Manchukuo and Mentiang in July of 1936, increasing both military and economic assistance. With the new funding, Prince Denchong-donggrub increased the new Inner Mongolian army from 3 cavalry divisions to 9, with new Japanese military advisors. The Japanese sold them weapons that they had captured from the Chinese Northeastern Army during the Rehe, Hubei, and Chahar battles. However, the man in charge of recruiting, Major Yukichi Tanaka, made the poor decision of hiring 10,000 irregulars from banditry groups through various regions. As a result, the forces would be poorly trained, poorly armed, and had no morale or loyalty. Alongside this, the Inner Mongolian army's immediate ally was the Grand Han Righteous Army of General Wang Ying, a proxy of the Japanese. This was a quickly tossed-up collaborationist unit, roughly 6,000 men strong, trained by the Japanese and organized into 4 infantry brigades in northern Chahar province. The loyalty and effectiveness of either army was quite questionable. The Japanese also created the Mangjiang Air Force, consisting of 28 aircraft based out of Changpei, and handed over artillery pieces, armored cars, and 30 or so tanks and tankettes. All of these were actually operated by Japanese, however. A transportation regiment of 150 trucks was sent from the South Manchurian Railway Company for logistics. Meanwhile, Chiang Kai-shek could clearly see the Japanese were encroaching into Inner Mongolia. Thus, he prepared what he could to defend places like Suiyuan province. Back in 1931, the governor of Shanxi province, General Yan Xishan, had dispatched General Fu Zuoyi to seize control and fortify Suiyuan province. Fu Zuoyi brought over Shanxi farmer soldiers who mined Suiyuan's iron deposits, representing 24% of China's iron, and cultivated 4,000 acres of farmland. However, after Japan began occupying northern Chahar, their proxy forces began contesting Fu Zuoyi's control. Thus, Fu Zuoyi turned to Yan Xishan for aid. But he, alongside Chiang Kai-shek, were tied down fighting the Chinese Red Army around Shanxi. On August 9th, Yan Xishan dispatched the 19th Army, led by General Wang Jingguo, and Chiang Kai-shek dispatched a single anti-aircraft artillery battalion from the Central Army to help. In October, General Tang Embo's 13th Army and Major General Men Bingyue's 7th Cavalry Division were sent to reinforce Suiyuan. By early November, Suiyuan was now defended by the 1st Route Army of Fu Zuoyi, the 2nd Route Army of Tang Embo, the 3rd Route Army of Li Fuying, with a cavalry army led by Zhao Chengshou and a reserve force led by Wang Jingguo. Altogether, this represented a 45-man strong force. By late October, the Japanese had formed a battle plan. The 1st Army, led by Li Shouxin, would be the left wing. The 2nd Army of Prince Denchong Dongrub would be the right wing, and Wang Ying's army would be the main central force. They would first attack Hongort, Xinghe, Tuchangzi, and Guisui City. Then they would separate to capture Jingyin, Baotuo, and Hutao. On November the 13th, the forces of Prince Denchong Dongrub and Wang Ying departed Xiangde in 2 columns to attack Xinghe and Hongort. On the 15th, 1,500 of their men arrived to Hongort, where they fought the 1st Cavalry Division of Peng Yubin. The next day, Prince Denchong Dongrub's chief advisor, Ryokichi Tanaka, dispatched 2 cavalry and 1 infantry brigade to storm the town, easily overwhelming and dislodging the defenders. Meanwhile, Wang Ying dispatched a smaller force to occupy Tuchangzi. Meanwhile, Fu Zuoyi set up his HQ at Jining. On that same day, and after analyzing the situation, he believed if the enemy took Hongort, it would break morale for his defenders, so he immediately tossed a counterattack. Peng Yubin led a force consisting of the 1st Cavalry Division and Dong Qiwu's 218th Brigade. They crashed into a front manned by 400 of Wang Ying's men defending Hongort and Tuchangzi. By 7 a.m. on the 18th, Tuchangzi was retaken, and at 8:30 the 1st Cavalry Division entered Hongort, where they charged through 500 of Wang Ying's men. Hongort was fought over for the next 3 days, seeing nearly 1,000 men killed, before Fu Zuoyi reclaimed it. The tides had turned upon the invaders, and seeking not to give the enemy a moment's breath, Fu Zuoyi unleashed an offensive against the Beiling Temple. The Beiling Temple was the rear base for the invaders, well stocked and currently defended by 3,000 men led by Prince Denchong Dongrub. Fu Zuoyi ordered the 2nd Cavalry Division, the 211th and 315th Brigade, the 21st Artillery Regiment, a force of 20 trucks and 24 armored cars to attack the Beiling Temple as swiftly as possible.
Hey guys, this is Craig from the Pacific War Channel. Please don't forget to check out my YouTube membership or my Patreon account over at www.patreon.com/thepacificwarchannel, where you can join the ranks and gain access to a hell of a lot of goodies. At the base minimum, you get access to the exclusive monthly podcast, early access to all of my content, voting rights for what subjects I will tackle next, and at higher tiers, I have much more goodies to come. So please click that link and check it out. Taking advantage of the Mongolian disorder, Fu Zuoyi had his forces perform a flanking movement to the west of the Beiling Temple through a horrible snowstorm.
At 1 a.m. on the 24th, the battle for the Beiling Temple began, as the Chinese fought the Mongolians for the fortified hills surrounding the temple. From 2 to 4 a.m., the Chinese began to penetrate closer to the temple walls, met with artillery and machine gun fire.
The Chinese launched suicidal frontal attacks against the city gates, taking tremendous casualties. A brutal stalemate emerged as the Japanese unleashed aerial bombardments upon the Chinese, inflicting heavy casualties. Fu Zuoyi then ordered all of the armored cars to be assembled into a spear thrust against the main city gate. The steel cars stormed the gate under heavy fire, managing to breach it, allowing the Chinese infantry to flood into the temple area. The carnage inside the walls of the temple saw the Mongols suffer 900 deaths, 300 captured as the rest fled for their lives. The Chinese lost 300 men, taking the strategic rear base alongside their enormous supply of provisions, 500 barrels of petrol, 600 rifles, 10 machine guns, motor vehicles, and field guns.
After the disastrous loss of the Bailing Temple, the invaders retreated and reassembled at the Silamuling Temple. On the 28th, the Japanese provided 100 vehicles to transport 3,000 men over to the Silamuling Temple to prepare for a major counterattack to recapture the Bailing Temple.
On the 29th, Wang Ying personally led 2,000 cavalry due north of Shangdu over to Taolin to try and contain the enemy. Fortunately for Wang Ying, as soon as he left the bulk of his forces at the Silamulang Temple, officers of the Grand Han Righteous Army began to secretly negotiate with the Chinese to try and defect over. Therefore, many of the forces needed for the counterattack against the Bailing Temple would just go to the other side. On December the 2nd, the counterattack began, seeing 10 armored cars with 1,000 Mongol troops in the vanguard storming the Bailing Temple vicinity at 6 a.m. They were repelled by the Chinese 211th Brigade, who now enjoyed heavily fortified positions with plentiful supplies, machine guns, and artillery. At 3 a.m. the next day, the Mongols attempted a surprise attack, but they were ambushed as they crept towards the temple area. They suffered hundreds of casualties and 230 men were captured, or they defected over. After this, the counterattack made no progress, as the Mongol forces could not get within 3 miles of the temple. Then the Chinese 2nd Cavalry Division sortied, performing a pincer attack, inflicting heavy casualties upon the invaders. By 9 a.m., the invaders had suffered 500 casualties and they were fleeing the area. At 7 p.m., Fu Zuoyi tossed another counterattack, and by 9 a.m. the next day, they had inflicted hundreds more casualties and they captured a few hundred men. With such losses, the defense of Silamulang Temple had lessened greatly. More officers at the Silamulang Temple began secretly defecting to the Chinese side. Late on the 4th, Fu Zuoyi assembled a force of 2 cavalry and 1 infantry regiment, 1 artillery battalion, 4 armored vehicles, and a squadron of cars to depart during the night to recapture the Silamulang Temple. Meanwhile, the 2nd Cavalry Division was fighting Wang Ying's cavalry 30 miles northeast of Wulanhua. Wang Ying's 2,000 cavalry units had been raiding all the nearby villages, causing a big ruckus, trying his best to take enemy forces away from the Bailing Simulang Theater. By the 9th, Wang Ying's cavalry were finally encircled around Xiaobei, where they were practically annihilated. Wang Ying was able to escape with just 100 guards fleeing for Changpei. Back over at the Silamulang Temple, on the 7th, some Grand Han Righteous Army officers set up a deal to defect to the Chinese side. Early on the morning of the 9th, these officers suddenly led their men to invade the Japanese advisor's residence, killing all 27 Japanese officers under the Japanese advisor Colonel Obama. Simultaneously, Fu Zuoyi's forces performed a flanking maneuver against the Silamulang Temple during all of the chaos. Men defected en masse, allowing the Chinese forces to storm into the temple area. The invader army disintegrated in a confused mess of defections, surrenders, and those fleeing. After seizing the temple, the invading army was routed. Their lines of communication were severed. Only isolated pockets continued to resist. Fu Zuoyi took advantage of the confusion and momentum to launch simultaneous attacks. He attempted to capture Shangdu, but Yan Xishan sent him a telegram ordering him to stop, stating that Shangdu was under the jurisdiction of Shanxi and not Suiyuan.
The battle for Suiyuan was not over. It would see intermittent fighting until the escalation of hostilities in 1937. For this part of the battle, the Mongol Han-Japanese invaders had suffered more than 2,000 casualties. It was a very embarrassing moment for the Japanese. It was to be one of the first victories for the NRA over the Japanese and their proxy forces, increasing morale. Despite the fact the Japanese continuously proclaimed having nothing to do with the Suiyuan battle, the NRA had captured numerous Japanese weaponry and equipment, which they used as evidence to showcase the Japanese aggression. As for Prince Denchong Dongrub and the Inner Mongolian troops, they retreated back to their base in northern Chahar. he was forced to rebuild his army, having suffered considerable losses. The Japanese officers involved in the Suiyuan battle had seen the poor performance of the Mongol troops, and they learned much of what they needed to improve upon. They began to recruit better candidates, and training was vastly improved. By the time the Second Sino-Japanese War officially broke out in July of 1937, Prince Denchong Donggrub would have 20,000 men in 8 cavalry divisions, better equipped, better trained, and ready for another go against Suiyuan. Hey, I really hope you liked this episode. Please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and leave a comment as to what you want me to talk about more in the future. And if you're looking to further support the channel, please consider checking out the YouTube membership or my Patreon account at www.patreon.com/thepacificwarchannel. By joining either of these, you get access to the exclusive podcast series, early access to all the content I make, and voting rights for the subjects I will tackle next. This has been the Pacific War Channel, over and out.